Williams has time against the four-man rush. Backpedaling, scanning, now running out of time. Circling back. Joystick on the move again. Are you kidding me? Caleb Williams dancing, cutting, mesmerizing run by the quarterback. Finally dragged down at the 20. It's a highlight reel tonight.
Thompson Robinson surveying. Delivers. Intercepted by USC. Corey Foreman.
Okay, we're going to talk USC football on the Our Lads Football Network for the OFN today. And whenever we talk USC football, it means Ryan Abraham makes his appearance for the year. And the way this season could go for USC, I certainly hope we get the opportunity to talk to you more than just this one time, Ryan. Thanks for doing this as usual.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, it's I can't believe that the season's like a week and a half away or whatever. It's crazy. Yeah. We got college football just right around the corner.
That's right. And USC fans don't have to worry too much schedule-wise, even though the season does get underway shortly. Their real season doesn't get underway, I think, until what, October 14th?
Yeah, it's more of a second half schedule, I guess you could say. If they're not 6-0 coming out of the gate, there's some serious problems going on. You get the Heisman winner coming back. The offense should be really good. They had some players on defense, but you look at the early part of their schedule, and you can lose any game in college football, obviously, but they should be overmatched. A lot of the teams that they're playing, which is, I guess, a good way to sort of get things rolling. But it's a tough stretch because you have a bye week at week 3 because you have a week 0 game. So week 1, week 2, week 3 you have a bye, and then the rest of the way you have games back to back. Right. And like those last 5 of those last 6 are pretty tough. And it's good if they make the Pac-12 championship game, they would have a bye before that instead of like a short week because it's a Friday game. But it's going to be a tough little slog there towards the end, especially with no off weekend to kind of rest up and heal the injuries that always seem to happen.
Yeah, and unlike what'll happen next year, losing a game here or there, you're going to be able to respond from that with a real playoff system in place. But we're still at 4 teams, and so especially Pac-12. I don't know. It's going to be tough. You think USC can make the playoffs if there are good teams battling it out for that Final Four? Do you think USC has to go undefeated?
I think they could do it at 11-1, just because it's USC. Could Oregon or Washington? Maybe not, but I think USC could. You got the Heisman winner back. People are willing to kind of jump on the USC bandwagon or whatever you say. Like they've been there historically. I mean, the good part, we talked about that hard part of the schedule. Like, I think, you're going to have 5 teams in the Pac-12 that are ranked, and the only one they wouldn't really play is Oregon State. So, you're playing Utah, Oregon, Washington. Like, if maybe you lose to Oregon on the road, but you beat Notre Dame, you beat Washington at home, you beat Utah at home, who beat you twice last year. I think, it depends how the rest of the league, the nation or whatever, the college football nation shakes out. But I think they would have a shot at 11-1. There isn't a lot of, like you mentioned, there's not a lot of room for error. And there would be more when you get to the Big Ten. And we don't know what that schedule is going to look like because they just added 2 more teams. So they gave us a schedule a couple of months ago, but that's all out the window. But, that's like a 10-2 thing, not even make the Big Ten championship, and you're making the playoffs. So it won't be that way for USC. They'd have to win the Pac-12. But I think like 11-1, you get to 12-1. I think they have a pretty good shot.
And UCLA, actually, taking a look at those last 5 games, that might end up being the one that, I mean, anytime you face your rivals, it's never easy. But out of all those teams, UCLA, they might have the biggest question because their big-time 4-year quarterback's gone.
Yeah, DTR looks pretty good in the preseason so far, what we got to see from UCLA. But they're an interesting one. I think like a lot of people are thinking they're going to go 9-3. But they don't have a very difficult schedule. They miss Oregon and Washington. They don't really have anything tough in the out-of-conference schedule. So even if USC is like an okay team, they're probably going to have a really good record by the time they play USC. Who knows? Maybe they get an upset in there or something. Chip Kelly's going to be able to run the football. They've relied on a lot of transfers, so it's tough when you're not really sure.
True.
The team looks like from one year to the other. But I think they could be pretty good. I mean, they gave USC all they could handle last year.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see. And it's the rivalry, like you said. This one will be at home, so that'll be a little nicer. They were in the Rose Bowl last year, but that definitely can be a tough one going down the stretch.
Yeah, just looking though, I mean, it's possible that they might start a true freshman at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, getting a 5-star guy in there, I could help it. I mean, Chip Kelly's not going to say a whole lot. We haven't heard a whole lot coming out of camp so far. It might be one of those things where, because they don't start off playing really tough teams, you might see multiple quarterbacks play. So I'm curious to see kind of what they do.
Well, I'm a big Grayson McCall fan. And I know unless they're better this year, because they really weren't a very good team last year overall, but if they're better this year, it could be an interesting first game, and San Diego State on the road. But interesting because Oregon State, we know how tough Jonathan Smith's done such an incredible job, and he gets the Clemson transfer in, and then Washington has Penix, and Oregon has Nix, and of course you got the Heisman Trophy Award winner at USC, and I guess that was and Rising coming back to Utah. So that's the one big question mark is at UCLA regarding those teams at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the top 5, I mean, if you could argue that, UCLA would be in there potentially, but the top 4, I think you're looking at, returning quarterbacks, USC, Oregon, Washington, and Cam Rising at Utah. I mean, we saw him at Pac-12 Media Day. They weren't sure if he's going to be back for the opener, but you think during the season he'll be back at some point. And then, UCLA could be there, but Oregon State could be too. You bring in DJ Ongelele, and, they can run the ball. They play really good defense. They could be up there too. It'd be funny just with the last real season of Pac-12 football, or I guess that we'll ever see, if Oregon State could go out on top and, win it. One of the leftover teams gets the last Pac-12 championship. I know they've been gunning for it, but they're good. I mean, I think you have the upper half of the Pac-12, I think, is good, like really good. Like there's some really good teams, really good offenses. Like you mentioned, UCLA is one with the unproven quarterback, but they got most everything else going there. And then the bottom half, you're not really sure. Last year, the bottom half wasn't really able to kind of take out any of the upper half teams, and that sort of set the Pac-12 up for a lot of teams ranked. We'll see. Could Colorado beat somebody? Could Arizona State with a new coach? Could they beat somebody? I don't think Stanford and Cal are going to be that good again, but Arizona might be. Like if they can make it to a bowl this season. So we'll see. The bottom half just hasn't been very good the last year or so, and we kind of don't think it will be again, but maybe they get a win or two against some of those top teams, through this season.
Yeah, I think Jed Fish is getting close. You just feel that maybe this is going to be the year they're going to pull off an upset or two. And Washington State also, they surprised some people how tough they were last year, and they bring back their quarterback too. So, yeah, they could be a sleeper as well. All right, so let's talk USC football. And I'm looking at let me post up here the depth chart. So I've got the depth chart for USC on our lads, and they place in orange on the depth chart all of the freshmen and the true freshmen and the transfers. And there's a lot of orange, especially from the transfers. So let's start on offense. And I see 3 of them on the offensive line. So that's going to be a big deal then, making sure those guys get acclimated to the offensive line. You still think it's going to be a solid unit, though, correct?
It should be. If you're looking across the offensive line, they could have 3 transfer starters in there. Manuel Pregnon is sort of a guy he's from Wyoming, but just was someone that people didn't really know about. But once he hit the portal, his name was a big deal. Okay. So he's probably going to take one of the guard spots. They bring in a couple other transfers, Jarrett Kingston and Michael Tarquin for Washington State and from Florida. They're actually supposed to have 2 Florida offensive linemen, but the other one of them didn't end up transferring out or is going to retire from football. But those 3 guys are probably going to be 3 of your starters on the offensive line. They really like Jonah Monheim, who's back and very versatile. He's probably going to play left tackle for USC, and then Justin Dedich played a lot of guard for USC over the years. It's like his 6th year in the program, and he's going to be the center. So they feel pretty good about those guys coming back, and then the 3 transfers coming in. And there's a lot better depth than they had even like 2 years ago, where there was just sort of like 6, 7 guys that could play, and then a bunch of guys that really weren't even like Pac-12 level offensive linemen. Sort of the end of the Clay Helton era where they were just getting bodies in there.
Okay.
They've placed a lot. So a lot of the freshmen they've come in, they like a lot. They probably won't contribute this year. And the transfers, they feel like the depth overall is much better than it was 2 years ago. And we'll see. I mean, you always get banged up on the offensive line, but it looks pretty solid from what we've seen, but potential for 3 of the transfers to be starting this year.
Did you say Monheim will play left tackle?
He's switched to that during fall camp.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't get to watch. We can watch the beginnings, and we hear what the players and coaches say. But that was sort of the buzz going into fall camp, and that's where we've seen him so far.
Okay. Does that just mean potentially Tarquin is at right tackle? Is it that?
Yeah,
simple?
I think they're going to do Tarquin at right tackle. It's, you know, at least from what we've been told and the limited stuff of what we've seen.
Okay. Then we take a look at, well, we might as well just start with Caleb. So as far as you can't really have as great as a season as you had last year, but I guess that is possible. You could actually win every game, which every quarterback will tell you is the most important thing. What does he need to do, though, to be even a better quarterback?
Yeah, I think there's actually some upside there, to be honest, because, you know, was it 4,200 yards and 5 interceptions might be tough to improve on because that's not very many, you know, didn't have a lot of turnovers. So that might be tough, but he could throw for more touchdowns. He could run for more touchdowns. He could throw for more yards, be more efficient. But like what you said is not losing a game. I mean, it's not necessarily about going undefeated, but if they go undefeated, that's a big deal. But if they were able to, say, like we said, go 11-1 and then win the Pac-12 championship game, that's something he didn't achieve last year. So it's sort of like you have upside on the team side, even though they won 11 games last year by winning the conference championship, the last one ever in the Pac-12. And then there's upside on the stats too. But I think he'll tell you he needs to be more consistent. I think he likes his leadership ability, but just, kind of being a better leader for everyone out there. The consistency and just kind of keeping a level head when things kind of go crazy, and being able to stay in the playbook as much as possible, and then improvising when you need to. I think that's sort of like where he's kind of looking to improve. But he's got a lot of dudes around him, so they should be able to help. But I think if that offensive line does pretty well, you've seen and Caleb Williams can stay healthy, he could improve on what he did last year.
Do you think that maybe there's too much responsibility sometimes? And I guess that's where the defense is going to come in. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. It can't just, because everybody knows how good of a coach Lincoln Riley is, but he's starting to have that reputation a little bit of being, all right, good coach, but it's all offense. And when is the defense going to catch up with the offense so you can actually win championships? Do you think that's also something that, because I can imagine that Caleb has been so many high scoring games, it's sometimes it's just so much. I mean, sooner or later, you're just not going to make the perfect play.
Yeah, you'd like to get him out of the games more than he did. And, last year, they had Miller Moss as his backup quarterback who got some playing time. And then when, Caleb Williams got banged up, played a little more. But, if that's the factor for me, like how much is Miller Moss getting into the games? If you're playing San Jose State, like you'd like him in sometime in the third quarter. You don't need it to be close. You're playing Nevada. You'd like to see that. Stanford just probably not going to be very good this year. Like you want to be able to blow them out early and get them in there. And there were just too many times where, if the offense did punt, which is, not that often, or, they didn't have a lot of turnovers either, but if they just got stopped for some reason, could the defense make a play? And
yes.
There's just too many games where they just weren't making a play, and it was a little bit closer than it should have been. And then Caleb Williams is staying in longer than you would like him to. So I think you're right. I think, he needs help from, his offensive teammates, of course, but I think he needs help from the defense too, just to allow him not to have to play as much as he did. Because they will, like you mentioned, they rely on him a ton.
Yeah.
It's going through him. If he gets banged up, there's the expectations for the season are not, anywhere near what they would be with a healthy Caleb Williams.
So you mentioned Moss. So is he definitely the number 2? And then, because anytime you bring in a 5-star quarterback, okay, well, how good is he? Is this kid Nelson? Is he just going to sit back and hopefully Williams will stay healthy? And Moss is more of a veteran, so if they need the next guy up will be Moss, and then Nelson can just kind of sit there and run a red shirt till next season?
Yeah, that's my gut feeling. Like Lincoln Riley actually spoke yesterday at practice, or on Monday, and talked about Malachi Nelson, the 5-star freshman from Los Alamitos here in Southern California, and he's making a lot of strides, improvements, and stuff. But my feeling is that he's getting acclimated to the college. It's not like he's just going to come in and be the number 2 guy. I think it would be really tough for him to beat out Miller Moss, who, like you said, is a veteran. He's been around there a little while, graduating already. He's only been there 3 years.
Wow.
So it's I think he's a smart kid. I think they feel pretty comfortable with him. So we don't get to watch, so I can't say, oh, he's looked much better in practice. We get to watch like when they're just throwing routes on air, and that's fine. But my gut feeling is it would be Miller Moss.
Okay. skill position, and started at running back. Austin Jones looked really good last year, and now he gets the opportunity to be the number one guy, and then they add in some new faces there as well. But Austin Jones, he's the returning guy. What's his ceiling like? How good can Austin Jones be?
I think he's got a really high ceiling because he can do most everything, catch the ball. He's a really smart player. Came from Stanford, so it's he's like, he knows what he's doing there.
Yeah.
It's funny. I talked to him last week, I think it was, and asked him about when the Pac-12 exploded, and he's like, he's like, I don't really know anyone on the team anymore. So he didn't really have any connections to the Stanford team anymore. This is, playing at USC last year, but I feel he's got a really good bond with Marshawn Lloyd, the South Carolina transfer, and they're the kind of two veterans, in that group. They got Darwin Barlow too, who's transferred in from TCU, and he's flashed at times too. So they're kind of three veteran guys that sort of go around. But it seems like it's a Lloyd Jones thing where which one is going to get the number one nod, and maybe they both end up playing a lot. They got two freshmen from Texas they like a lot too, but Lloyd is he's looked really good. We've seen Jones play. My gut feeling is it's probably going to be more of like Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd sort of leading the way, and then they'll make some carries for some of those other guys coming in too. But I think those two they're probably going to end up being the main backs in my estimation.
And at the wide receiver positions, so Addison's gone. And of course, that's a big loss. But Mario Williams, we know his name, and also Washington. He's becoming a more familiar face. So talk about if you had to say one guy is like the go-to guy, who's the go-to guy?
That's tough because they excuse me, they're going to be pretty deep again. They got some freshmen coming in that they really like that can all play. But for veterans, there's a whole bunch of juniors together. You have Taj Washington, I think second leading receiver on the team last year. I mean, he was very productive. Brendan Rice, if you watch the Cotton Bowl, he had a breakout game. That's Jerry Rice's kid, and you just feel like his size and catch radius and all that. Like he can really have a huge season. Some people are thinking he's going to be like the number one guy for USC. And Mario Williams is his third year catching passes from Caleb Williams. So there's a bond there that you just can't deny. So I mean, he could potentially be the number one. But my pick is probably going to be Dorian Singer, the transfer from Arizona, who was second leading receiver in the Pac-12 last year. Sort of had a little on the field incident, I guess, with Jay Delora, the Arizona quarterback. So you thought that maybe this could be some sort of transfer situation. That's what ended up happening. And so I think Dorian Singer might end up being the number one guy, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, that sounds good because I'm just looking at the depth chart here, and it's like you mentioned Rice and Singer and Williams and Washington. I mean, that's four guys who on a lot of college football teams might be the number one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams got a lot of options, so guys he can throw to, so that's not a bad thing.
And Branch, he's the one that you're talking about, the freshman? Is that the one to keep an eye on?
Yeah, five-star Zachariah Branch, but even five-star, they moved him from tight end. Deuce Robinson from Arizona, he looks really good.
Oh, Deuce Robinson's not playing tight end anymore.
Yeah, he's doing the wide receiver thing. So yeah, those guys just you look at Branch play, he looks like he's a junior in college or something, just built and all the moves, one-handed catches, and you're like, this guy's a true freshman. So we'll see how much they end up playing. It's going to be hard to keep some of those guys off the field, though. So they're probably using a lot of rotation and see some different guys.
And so if Robinson moves over, what's the tight end room look like?
It's funny because they've had some production on the tight end, mostly like touchdown catches, but they haven't had a lot of like overall production or just consistent production. But Jude Wolfe has been out for a couple years with different injuries, back and foot, and he's back. He looks really good. But Lake McCree's probably the leader. He's a redshirt sophomore for USC. They moved over Carson Tabaricci from the linebacker spot. I don't think he's going to necessarily be a factor, but I would look for Jude Wolfe or Lake McCree. And the question will be how much they use them and what kind of outside of like red zone stuff, or they get to use them, kind of in the middle of the field. We'll have to see if they do.
So that in Lincoln Riley's offense, do they not really use the tight end a whole lot?
He has the blank on the Baltimore Ravens tight end. Mark Anderson?
Oh, Mark Andrews.
Mark
That's
Andrews,
right.
He was a Lincoln Riley guy, and
That's right.
They've had some huge numbers there, but they've had like at least his time at USC, it's been like very receiver focused, just because they've had like great receivers. You bring in the Biletnikoff Award winner. Like, okay, you're probably going to throw the receivers. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to defense. So this is going to be the make or break really for the team because they're going to put up points. They've got the #1 draft pick in the NFL. I think everybody knows that already, as long as he stays healthy. But up front, I see a whole lot of, in that front seven, a whole lot of transfers. So who are the key guys to keep an eye on?
There are a lot of transfers, and I think they bring like 8 or 9 guys, starters back on defense, and a bunch of them probably aren't going to be starting anymore, which is a good thing. They're still on the roster, but you're getting replaced. Looking at the defensive line, just the front seven in general, I think Keon Bars is a big defensive tackle from Arizona. I think he's going to play a big part. Bear Alexander is the former 5-star defensive lineman. Played in the national championship game for Georgia last year, and he's on USC's roster now. Or Anthony Lucas is another former 5-star kind of rush end, defensive end spot coming in from Texas A&M. And those last 2 guys don't have a ton of proven production in college, but they have a lot of upside. But like a Jack Sullivan comes in for Purdue, played for 4 years there, a lot of production, a lot of leadership. He's like a coach on the field. He's probably going to play a big role there. And then Jamil Muhammad is someone you've never heard of because he played at Georgia Southern, or no, it was Georgia State, I think.
Georgia State.
One of those. And there's not Georgia Southern is where Clay Helton is. So I got
Georgia State. Yeah.
Yeah, but man, it just comes in and he's like getting first team reps in the spring. He's just blowing people away. So a lot of guys that you didn't see, but they're going to play in the front seven that you haven't really seen before. But Mason Cobb is probably the biggest name coming in from Oklahoma State. Leading tackler there, all team second Big 12. They needed like a solid tackler in that linebacker spot. And looks like he's going to be the guy. So just the new guys coming in from the front seven, like you could almost start a whole new front seven, even though you have a bunch of the guys back from last year. So it should help with depth.
Yeah.
Should help with the talent infusion. And they should be better. We'll see if they are. But with the guys they added, they should be a lot better.
Is there someone that is returning? Because, of course, you did lose your top guy to the NFL. But is
Solomon Tuipulotu, yeah.
Yeah, I'd let you say his name. But as far as the leftovers, is there someone that we should keep an eye on, one of those guys?
So like a Solomon Bird's a senior that transferred in last year. I think he's got a lot of accolades. Like he's coming in on the rush end. Corey Foreman is a former 5-star that they like a lot. And he had an interception against UCLA last year. And then Romello Heights, another transfer from last year from Auburn that was basically hurt the whole time. But he is a first dude off the bus guy. You just look at him, it's like, holy cow, that guy's chiseled. So he's really happy to be healthy now and could be a good spot rushing the passer too. So some of those guys from last year should be able to step up and contribute.
Okay. And then you mentioned Cobb at middle linebacker. So the team plays mostly 2 linebackers, which a lot of defenses are nowadays. Is there another linebacker to keep an eye on, especially because most of those guys are returning guys?
Yeah, there's mostly returning there. Cobb's the new guy. Eric Gentry is like this kind of a unicorn. He's like 6'6". I think he's up to like 220 now, but he was a lot thinner last year. He's been banged up a little bit through fall camp, but he's got to be. We don't know where he's going to play, but he's going to be on the field. Just kind of gets into passing lanes, bats balls down. So he's someone to watch for. I think between him and Cobb, they're probably going to be your front 2 linebackers.
All right, and then the secondary. One key transfer it looks like in there. Is that the case? Just one guy? Is that Roland Wallace?
Yeah, so Christian Roland Wallace looks like a linebacker. He's coming out, another Arizona guy. They got like 3 starters from Arizona, which is crazy, but he looks like a stud. They're pretty deep.
Okay.
Kalen Bullock comes back. He's going to be one of the leaders there in that secondary. They like the way Sear Wright was playing in the corner spot. And there's just a bunch of dudes, that they've got. I think you could probably run 8 deep at both corner and safety for USC.
Okay.
So we'll see, but like you said, most of the guys are returning, but Christian Roland Wallace is someone to watch. Just watching him, like when they're not in pads and just him in his jersey, you just look at his arms like, holy cow, that guy's a cornerback. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they're getting bigger nowadays. Is there a guy on defense that you would say is the leader of the defense?
I think last year Shane Lee comes in from Alabama and was maybe a little limited as far as like shouldn't have been an every down linebacker, like maybe take him off the field on passing downs. came in and really did a good job leading. I think he still will, but man, Mason Cobb was their representative at Pac-12, one of them at Pac-12 Media Day, along with Caleb Williams. So the fact that he could transfer in from Oklahoma State and be asked to represent the defense tells you something. So I think he's definitely emerged as one of those leaders.
How's the kicking game looking?
So they bring in the All-American punter, or not all Pac-12 punter from Arizona State, Eddie Toplinski, and so he looks pretty good. They got their kicker back from last year. They was fine, did a pretty good job. They weren't very good overall on special teams. So you get an upgraded punter, that should help. More bodies there will help for in the return game and everything. But they were just kind of meh on special teams last year to bad. But bringing in, they don't punt that often, but bringing in the best punter in the league probably is going to help that.
Well, that's the thing. It's such I know everybody talks about Heisman winner and offense and Lincoln Riley, but yeah, winning national championships, sometimes it does, more often than not, kind of come down to defense making stops, really good, solid special teams. And maybe those are the little things that USC's got to do a little bit better job at if they really want to contend for a national championship.
Yeah, I think you can lose a game with special teams for sure. Bad call, not going for it on second or for a 2-point conversion when you're supposed to, or not going for it on fourth down. Little things like that can cost you games. So you don't want to leave any of that up to chance. Some of the Pete Carroll years, you didn't really see a lot of emphasis on special teams. They were just so good everywhere else. But I don't think USC's to that point yet. They need to be able to be good on special teams too.
Give me a breakout player on both sides, offense and defense, somebody that is ready to make that next step.
That's a good one. I think on the offensive side of the ball, I think Jude Wolfe, where we talked about tight end, I just get a feeling talking to him that he could have a really big year for USC, that maybe they use the tight end more. I think there's a lot of options on the offensive side. And, stay away from some of those freshmen, but I think Jude Wolfe, I think they're going to use the tight ends more. Just talking to him, it seems like he's someone that can, can really make a difference there, and use him not just in the red zone, but kind of everywhere else. And defensively, I think I'm going to go with Corey Foreman. He had that interception against UCLA, like I mentioned last year. They're saying he's just stacking days, working hard, and the fans really want him. Any former 5-star, fans want them to do well, and it seems like he's making good progress there. He's been a little limited in somewhat through camp, but the coaches, when he's been out there, they've really liked what he's done. So I'll pick those two guys.
Any major coaching changes?
No, they stayed exactly the same. The only thing is they added Cliff Kingsbury, former Arizona Cardinals head coach.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so he's an analyst. We don't hear from him at all, but he's working with the quarterback. So it's kind of nice. The quarterback room, they lost a couple of the grad assistants that were working with QBs that took other jobs. So it's a pretty, you would have Lincoln Riley in one ear and Cliff Kingsbury in the other. It's not too bad if you're a quarterback.
And recruiting, is that back to being top heavy? Or I know a lot of transfers, but are they at the point that they could start relying on just their recruiting overall?
They had a really good June, and they got up to number 5, and now they're back in the teens again. So it's sort of been hit or miss there. They'll bring in a really solid class, but I don't know if it's going to be a top 5 kind of class, which you kind of need to do. But so I'm guessing it's going to be some portal stuff. This will be, I think a lot of it's going to be too proving it on the field. If they can go out and win the Pac-12, I feel like you're going to be in a better position to recruit some of those guys. Because it was good. They went from 4-8 to 11-3 or whatever last year, but I think now you kind of have to take that next step. And if they're able to do that, then I think they'll be able to recruit even at a higher level.
Yeah, that's the thing. You may think it because you're not from the area, but this hasn't been a 3 or 4 year run. This is 1 year. Right. And I think it's just people at USC, and they think that, oh, no, come on, really? No, really, yeah. This is a rebuilding job, and it's happened really fast. So before I let you go, do you have, give me, I don't know if you've made an official prediction yet. What do you think overall? What's your prediction if you have one?
Yeah, I haven't really gone through yet, but I think it's 11-1 is reasonable. I could see them losing on the road, at Notre Dame or Oregon, something
just like last year, basically.
Yeah, I feel like they can take care of business at home. It's an easy part of the schedule. As long as if Caleb Williams stays healthy, I think that's pretty achievable. There's upside. They could go undefeated, but it's hard to picture them losing some of these games just as good as the offense is going to be, and I think the defense is going to be better. So I think that's a reasonable, 11-1.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my thought process is right now.
Because really, that would be a disappointment because really it's about Pac-12 championship. When you have Caleb Williams after last season, it's about Pac-12 championship or bust, isn't it?
Yeah, and they want to make the playoff for sure. And you're hearing from Lincoln Riley, like, he'll tell you, like, off the side, like 11 wins isn't good enough. Like that's not what their goal is. It's not just to like be pretty good and improved. It's to be, they want to. I think he really wants to win the last Pac-12 championship. So I think there's a lot of focus on that.
That's I can't even believe that's a thing. Wow.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, Ryan, your show, now you've got, of course, and we will have it in the description area. We'll have links to check out not only uscfootball.com, but your show right now is that, how often do you do that a week?
Yeah, we're doing like 3 or 4 shows a week, and we'll get more. We do the Peristyle podcast, regular podcast we do on video sometimes, and then Tunnel Vision is our video show that we'll do. In the season we'll do it twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays. So a lot of online content, a lot of podcasts and videos and stuff like what you're doing here. Just the fans really get into it when the season starts.
Oh yeah, and you can get that on where? You can get that on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube at Inside Troy is my YouTube handle, or just everything's over at uscfootball.com.
Ryan, I appreciate it as always. And again, hopefully it's the type of season that it's going to be a lot of fun covering USC. And I hope we get the opportunity to talk maybe sometime in October or November, maybe even December.
That sounds good. We'll love it. And great. Thanks for having me on again. It's a lot of fun.
You got it. Thanks, Ryan.